One. All right.
Welcome, amnesiac cops, fragments of childhood, and memory vampires, to episode 443 of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 22nd of March, 2022. Yes, sorry, Rand, we missed the Ides of March. And streaming and discussing Adam, written by Catherine Chigena, and starring John Barrowman as Jack Harkness, Eve Miles as Gwen Cooper, Bern Gorman as Owen Harper, Naoko Mori as Toshiko Sato, Gareth David-Lloyd as Yanto Jones, and Kai Owen as Reese Williams. I am Bill Sylvia, the one in black, and with me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated.
Alex Fireheart.
Where Adam looks like he'd give someone an awful waffle.
And Mad Matt Winchell.
Apparently, full moons affect this little town too. Who knew?
So this is our first time back in 3 weeks because 1 week I think it would have just been me and Matt, and then another week it would have just been me and Alex, and neither of those are ideal for ideal streaming conditions.
Especially when neither of you two actually have anything prepared for making the stream happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that
it's
would've
Matt
taken
and
some
then me as
figuring.
backup.
Right.
And trust me, I was in no condition to do anything.
And technically, the one that would have been me could have been me and Bill. I was already kind of feeling a little fatigue too. That was until the full moon week hit last week. Good lord. What all happened
Last
that
week?
first night of the full moon? We had a weird vehicle park in our parking lot, unattended, but had our food on the dashboard. Don't know how. Had crazy people that have been forcibly removed by police because they make trouble and freak out children. Suddenly show up again, but not long enough for us to call in the police on them. Somebody's honking a horn outside now. Good lord, what on earth? Oh yeah, and the truck delivery guy for our store says, yeah, I got 35 bags for you. 35 bushels of bags. That's about 4 times as many bags. And our kitchen guy just went, oh, hell, I'm going to take everything outside and fill in as much as I can. And then we had to literally put the rest in the freezer in the kitchen. So absolute chaos there. And then I get another schedule update, and then my next 7 days I'll be working. I'll be working next week, Tuesday, but I will be done at 3 o'clock. So heaven fucking help me. Since
So
I already
you
got my
hope.
hours extended today for tomorrow.
So you hope there, Dante, so you hope.
I can say no. I've already extended my hours again this week. Also, I don't think they want me in as often anymore. I'm now officially over $14 an hour.
Yeah, but when there's nobody else.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always Blake and Logan and a couple of others.
I worked for a company that had a hard rule on no overtime or else the manager's in trouble. And then I would hear that there was a restaurant where the four people working that night were all on overtime because there just wasn't enough staff.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what we've been
And-
looking at. It's like, yeah, we just need more people, period. The end.
Yeah, well, yeah, I refer to you as Dante, as in Dante Hicks from Clerks.
Mhm.
Because that does seem to be your life recently. I
Yeah.
wasn't even supposed to be here today.
Actually, that hasn't happened in about a week. Extended days,
Well,
yes. Days I wasn't supposed
A
to be
week
there,
is
not
not
for a
that
while.
long compared to how long it's been happening.
You should.
How would I know? I've been playing video games with Death. Yes, Death has moved on from chess. We now do video games.
Have you gotten that next Pokemon yet? Ooh.
Thank God he sucks at Call of Duty.
I'm all thumbs. Where do I use a trigger? Where is the trigger? Help me! Never mind, I'm respawning.
Well, Death did call me a fucking camper, but yeah.
Are you sure that wasn't the squeaker?
Yeah, anyway, I have been in the hospital. I've been in the hospital, out of the hospital, in the hospital again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my 3 weeks have been. I had my my issues with, oh my God, there's too much fluid on me, so they had to, put on a tap and start draining me. But then when they were ready to release me, they put me on a brand new pill regimen, gave me a COVID shot the same day, and they had fucked up the IV in my arm so that I had a whole bunch of swollen tissue full of Lasix, and they got my medication amounts wrong.
Woo.
Yeah. End result, I was having blood pressure drop-offs, and it had messed up my GI tract to the point that I was having really bad diarrhea. And by Sunday, I was weak as a kitten and had to call in and go back into the hospital. And there they spent the next week and a half slowly tweaking my meds and trying to fix all these problems very carefully. So now I have to take almost a literal bucket of drugs every morning. And then a lesser amount in the evening. And they've got me on a new diuretic that basically has me going pee around the clock instead of just for about, 12 hours. Lucky me.
I technically have also gotten some
they
other
keep this
things
up.
done, but I'm kind of waiting for our next time because tonight's going to be crowded with stuff tonight, as it is.
Mm-hmm. So that's basically my trips in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. You too. What have you been up to?
Pretty much just getting my sleeping habits to something like vaguely reasonable, and watching a fuck ton of wrestling. That's like that, and video games has basically been it.
Is your vacation over?
You know what? I realized that I actually do have something that would work for Geek Talk that I finished while we were thingo, but I will leave that until next week because we've got enough as it is.
Oh yes, we do. Because in the usual tradition, what did I do while I was in the hospital? I watched shit.
There's so much else you can do there.
But yeah, like essentially, like again, like I took the whole month of March off, so I start back like the first weekend of April. And I finally, like, after a while of my sleeping habits getting just like worse and worse and worse. I think that's also why I missed 1 week of the. Actually, yeah, that's why I like of the 2 weeks we took off. The first week, one of the reasons I missed it was just because my sleeping habits were that bad at that point that I like hadn't slept yet, and I was just like, no. um, and then by the next week, they were good, but then like there were other things.
Oh
So
my
like
word,
I
they're
was
coming
ready to
back
go
in.
last week, but then stuff happened.
I don't know who this a-hole is, but I'm ready to step outside with a shotgun. It'll blow out their tiles, maybe I'll get their horn. I don't know what they're doing. They're running up and down our street, now going the other direction, honking their horn.
Did your like local high school have a game or anything?
Not that I'm aware of. Like I said, man, the full moon around here has been weird, extra weird this week.
So, talking about sleep patterns, I had some temperature-induced insomnia where it was, 70 outside, but somebody in one of the apartments around me had their heat on, so my sleep was all fucked up. But then I reached a point where I was just so tired, I would eat dinner at like eat at 6 or 7, and then pass out and sleep for 9 hours. So that was kind of my schedule until yesterday, when I got a migraine and ate too much pizza, and my innards didn't appreciate it, and I spent half the night on the toilet instead of asleep. Um, which is kind of good because I would have been struggling to stay up until the end of the podcast if I had kept going to sleep before midnight every night. So, ups and downs. In terms of what I've done, I made some really good progress on my thesis proposal. Now I just need to keep making that same amount of progress over the next week. Um, yeah, apparently there was a hate crime in my school over the weekend.
Oh, great.
So that's an interesting thing going on. That's about it in my life.
Yeah. Ohio's been a bit volatile recently. I have a friend that lives up by Columbus, and there's been some white supremacists doing demonstrations. Makes him feel really uncomfortable.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Like, like maybe he should move kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not, I mean, he's in the suburbs too, so.
Right.
It's kind of like, what the fuck? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, let's move on to tonight's show, shall we? We've got news, birthdays, geek talk, episode summary, our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's move on to birthdays, or birthday cut down, we should say, because with 3 weeks gone, we had 25 birthdays,
About that.
and we had to cut those down to 10 just to keep us from spending the entire 2 hours discussing birthdays. So
Right.
here's the fillet of the birthdays in the last 3 weeks. Starting with March 2nd, the birthday of Alexander Armstrong, who played Mr. Smith in Sarah Jane Adventures. He turned 52. The 5th was the birthday of Matt Lucas, who played Nardole with Peter Capaldi's Doctor. He turned 48. Also the same day, our former panelist Erin Romeo Moon Burke also had a birthday. She turned 41. On the 7th, we had Gordon Fleming, the director of the Doctor Who movies from the 60s. He would have been 88 but died in 1995 at 61. Moving forward to the 11th, we had the birthday of John Barrowman. Barrowman! Who, of course, played Captain Jack Harkness. He turned 55. Also, the same day is the birthday of Alex Kingston, who played River Song. She turned 59. And Douglas Adams, famous writer and script editor, would have been 70, but he died in 2001 at 49. Going forward to the 20th was the birthday of Freema Agyeman, who played Martha Jones. She turned 43. The 21st was the birthday of current producer Chris Chibnall, or current showrunner Chris Chibnall, and we can only say that now for a few months until he turns it over to Russell T. He turned 52. And finally, today saw the birthday of Mary Tam, the first Romana, who would have been 72, but she died in 2012 at the age of 62. That was already a mouthful.
Yeah.
So, happy birthday, Alexander, Matt, Aaron, Gordon, John, Alex, Douglas, Freema, Chris, and Mary. Moving on from births to deaths, we do have a lost story. Actress Linda Barron, or is it actor? No, it's she.
Yeah, the term actress has apparently fallen out of favor, so I just label everyone actor.
Yeah, well, I'm old-fashioned. She acted in 3 stories in classic and modern Who. Has died at the age of... Is that supposed to be 82?
Possibly. I clearly fucked that up. Yes, age of 82.
Yes.
I'm like looking at 1982. I'm like, no, that would be an achievement unless you're a Time Lord. Barron played the narrator in The Gunfighters, the one who sang about the Last Chance Saloon.
Yep.
Captain Rack in Enlightenment, one of the Immortals. And Val in Closing Time. She first appeared on TV in Theatre Night, a BBC series of 45-minute extracts of plays, and appeared in such shows as Z Cars and Open All Hours. It was her best known role and one that she last reprised in 2013. There was no reports of what she died from?
Not that I saw. Usually, if it's over 70, I don't think they include a cause.
Sometimes they
Most
do.
of the time. Right.
Just making sure. Nope.
Yeah, they don't
she just
state
died.
anything. Yeah, they don't state anything. She was still working at the age of 80.
Yeah, I know. I was just wondering if it was the big C.
That's all they really mentioned.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I always have that curiosity because of the amount of people that worked at the BBC in the 80s that got cancer. So
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the other big C. Okay.
yeah, not COVID, cancer. That's right. I guess there's another big C nowadays. Okay, so moving on from that to our episode news.
Yep.
Cult Bucks have found some new details about Legend of the Sea Devils from Doctor Who magazine. The spring special will be co-written by Chris Chibnall and Ella Road, who's mostly known as an award-winning playwright. Craig Ells, who played Carnavista, will return as a new character named Marcissus. The interview also mentioned massive full-size galleon ships and exquisite costumes. From what I've seen, that looks true. In side news, the production team's unofficial Twitter account has identified 2 openings in the BBC America Easter Sunday TV schedule. Based on evidence from cruise TVs, these appear to be air times for Legend of the Sea Devils. If true, Legend will air at 7 p.m. British Standard Time on BBC, with a simulcast at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the US, followed by a second airing at the standard Doctor Who time of 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Apparently that's British summertime. I don't know what it's called the rest of the time.
I thought it was British Standard.
At least when I looked it up, it was British summertime, because I was trying to figure out why it was still 5 hours ahead of daylight instead of 4 hours. But that was just based on a quick Google search.
Yeah, it is. It's British summertime, BST. Yep, you are correct. Which started March 27th. Which starts March 27th and lasts until October.
It's much shorter than the US version.
Well, especially starting next year, where we go on daylight
when it becomes
savings time and
permanent.
don't. Yeah.
We basically just shift an hour to the right and stay there.
Yeah, I'm a little leery about that personally, but that's.
And that means anybody crossing the Canadian border will immediately be moving into a new time zone, I'm guessing.
Okay. Also from Doctor Who magazine, via Cult Box, an interview with Matt Stevens has revealed more information that the Centenary Special will be a massive feature-length epic. So it's going to be long.
Yep.
How long? I don't know.
They won't
I
tell
think
us.
feature length usually means what? At least 80 minutes, I think? I don't know if there's a specific number.
I would assume
I
at
don't
least
know if
90.
it's 80 to 90.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I doubt it's going to be like a 2.5 hour story. That would be ridiculous for Doctor Who.
Although they might actually get something right outside of the pacing.
Doctor Who, the new movie, yeah.
We totally can't fail this a second time, can we?
Well, considering how much of a failure the first one was. Couldn't even get the show restarted. God damn it. Anyway. Bill?
Okay. You read the orange. I wasn't sure if you were planning to
I
read
know.
the book
I
as well.
realized that.
All right, yes. So the Doctor Who
So Alex can take the purple section.
Okay. Which makes sense. You have a lot of geek talk as well, so it fits. The Doctor Who Appreciation Society has announced a new award for writers in memory of the much-loved and highly influential writer Terrance Dicks, who died in 2019. The award will recognize writers of Doctor Who media of all stripes. The inaugural award will be presented by Terrance's widow, Elsa Dicks, at the Capitol Convention in London on the weekend of April 2nd. And the Terrance Dicks Award for Writers is in the form of a statue of Roger Delgado's master, crafted by Gary Glover of Mooncrest Models.
Pretty sure I just copied this link and it still took me to the wrong place.
Oh.
Copy. Link.
We're about to say something, Ryan?
Statuette of Delgado's master.
Yes.
A masty.
Just imagine Roger Delgado watching you sleep.
You will obey me.
I am the master, and you will obey me. Yeah.
And another tidbit we have is fans who enjoy both Fortnite and Doctor Who can now fight for either the Time Lords or the Daleks in locations such as Gallifrey, the Kerblam Warehouse, or a pating-infested starship.
Does that mean
Kept
they're
that
going to have
short
Jodie
because I don't
Whittaker
think
doing?
there's any huge Fortnite fans here.
Does that mean they're going to have Jodie Whittaker doing stupid dances like they did Thanos?
They
Probably.
have her outfit, Matt Smith's outfit, David Tennant's outfit, and the oddly enough, Colin Baker's outfit in the game by looks of it.
Jesus Christ! Talk about painting yourself as a target.
Actually, to be fair, as neon as everything else is in that game, I wouldn't be surprised. At first, it felt weird saying that the Colin Baker's outfit was going to be in there, and then I think for a moment, and you know what?
Oh
No.
yeah,
never mind.
I'm thinking of the Fortnite characters now. Yeah, actually, he'd fit right in.
So what you're saying is that the Sixth Doctor is camouflage.
Yes. He looks like any other player from a distance.
I mean, to that end, I'm more surprised that Colin Baker's outfit got in, but Tom Baker's didn't, seemingly.
True.
But again, I guess it's more colorful, so it fits more.
Swings and roundabouts, but yeah.
All right. Next up is Alex with the Big Finish releases.
Okay, so in new releases, we have Unit Nemesis 2, released on the 3rd of March, featuring 4 stories written by Andrew Smith, Kenneth Grant, Lizzie Hopley, and John Dorney, and starring Gemma Redgrave, Ingrid Oliver, and Mark Bernard as the 11th Doctor. Or just the 11th. The 8th of March, Protectors of Time, which was released on the 8th of March in celebration of International Women's Day, featuring 3 stories written by Elizabeth Miles, Abigail Burdess, and Nina Milnes, and starring Lala Ward, Georgia Tennant, Michelle Ryan, Katie Manning, Anjali Mahindra, and Jay Griffith.
And by the way, since you might have been confused by it, the 11 is a basically an evil Time Lord that's appeared in Paul McGann stories, I believe.
Okay.
It was actually, I think, originally a reference in the main show, The Fall of the 11. But Big Finish took that ball and ran with it.
Gotcha.
They bit at it like a fish on a hook.
We'll do something. We'll do something.
As they do.
And finally, we see the release of the 4 Doctor Adventures Solo, are released on the 16th of March, featuring 2 stories written by Timothy X. Attack and David Llewellyn, starring Tom Baker, James Dreyfus, and Neris Hughes.
And that is our news.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving right along.
Yep. So
Geek Talk.
So I started off, and I'm going to try keep it to under 3 minutes.
I'm gonna try that myself, or at least under 5.
All right. Got the time ready, so 3 minutes. Ready, set, go.
All right. So Star Wars Bad Batch is basically about a rogue group of a squad of clone troopers who, due to basically genetic defects, manage not to execute Order 66. And they're basically their time on the run, essentially. In terms of the galaxy, what you mainly see is the year after the formation of the Empire. There's a lot of callbacks and call forwards, which I wouldn't say are strictly necessary, but probably don't really detract from the show either. The real core of the show is basically that you're seeing these, these battle-hardened clones who are now essentially ended up picking up another clone who is a child for reasons I will not go into because there's spoilers involved. So they're basically learning, parenthood, like fatherhood, unclehood, whatever you want to call it, with this young clone, and all of the ups and downs that come with that. So The characters really drive it, and they're really the reason to watch it. I guess you could watch it for the lore, but it's really for the characters. Definitely, if you enjoyed the latter seasons of Clone Wars, I would say this is a solid continuation. If you I think there's probably enough lore that it would be difficult to watch without the Clone Wars. So either way, I'd recommend watching the Clone Wars first. But I would say Bad Batch is pretty solid for what it is. And that's all I have to say there.
All right, just under 2 minutes. Reset and
All
go.
right. So I watched Hawkeye while I was in the hospital, which you have to watch Black Widow before you watch Hawkeye because it actually kind of expands the plot of that.
Yep.
It wasn't bad. It held my attention. I don't think it's the greatest thing that Marvel has ever come out with, but it was enjoyable. I liked the character interaction a little bit, and it at least was decent. Could they have done better? Probably. But it was at least good enough because I'm pretty sure the the main character in that is going to probably make more appearances in the MCU coming up here in the future. But
the main antagonist already has a show with her name scheduled.
Doesn't surprise me. But the I'm pretty sure that the female lead will become one of the Avengers at some point. So, yeah, it's watchable, decent. As it's better than some things I've seen, but definitely not as good as others. Speaking of which, I'm going to move on to Peacemaker.
All right, reset.
Which came out 2020 or came out earlier this year on HBO Max. Peacemaker was fucking brilliant. It took a character that I liked the least from the second Suicide Squad movie and made me like him. The fact that he was played by John Cena has no bearing on it other than the fact that John Cena did a really good job with this character. Yes, he's a doofus, but considering the amount of fuck-ups around him, I really can't blame him. And it is just watching these people interact is just.
If he wasn't the doofus, it would just be the Punisher Part 2, and we don't need that. We already have the Punisher.
Yeah. But yeah, the way he acts and the way the group acts around him, especially like Vigilante and the others, it's just absolutely hysterical. And yes, great Eagle. Eagle was great. All I can say is Peacemaker is a definite one to watch. It's been renewed for a second season, and thank you, HBO Max.
Well, it seems they found their niche there.
If everything coming out for the DC universe was this style, they would have a great thing. I mean, you get him and Captain Marvel, or Shazam.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be a freaking interesting show right there. Anyway, moving on to more serious grounds. I have talked repeatedly about Star Trek Discovery before, usually at the end of each season. And I have mentioned as each season has gone on, I have liked it more and more. The first season is garbage. It doesn't feel like Star Trek. The second season sort of felt like Star Trek a little bit. Third season, you started to get that feel, and the fourth season outdid itself. This season was unbelievably cool. It started out with the same notch that Doctor Who did with the big thing destroying the universe, but it just boiled down to the fact that there was a race that wasn't even aware that, there was life in the galaxy. And they had to go and make first contact and explain to him what was going on, and there was a whole bunch of other subplots going on about people that wanted to just up and destroy this thing versus all this, and it was actual Star Trek. It was amazing. It had that feel, and I loved almost every minute of it.
Nice.
And that shows how far this show has gone in its 4 seasons. The finale, which aired about a week and a half ago, actually put tears in my eyes. If they had ended the series on that episode, I would have felt complete. There is at least one more 10-episode season that they're doing, but all I can say is good job, Paramount. You're finally finding your feet again. You're reminding us of what Star Trek is supposed to be. So those of you that have been shunning Discovery since its first season, I do ask that you go back and you take some time and rewatch it. It does get better. Moving on. We're going into movies now. And as I mentioned with Hawkeye, I saw Black Widow. I was singularly unimpressed.
That's sadly what I keep hearing.
It is going into the backstory of what happened with Black Widow post Civil War, but pre Infinity War. And this adventure she had finding her sister, and this whole thing with the place that she grew up, it dealt with her past. But it didn't feel wholly written out well. It felt a little disjointed. And there was at least one character that was played entirely for laughs, which I thought needed to be a little more serious. And
I think I know who you're talking about.
It didn't feel authentic. It felt a little ad hoc, hackneyed, whatever. Somebody needed to go and work on character dynamics a bit more, I think. Also, of course, the fact that it was delayed so much due to COVID meant, of course, it came out and everything in it was almost completely superfluous because, of course, Black Widow met her fate in Infinity War. So, really, the only reason to watch this is to understand what's going on in Hawkeye. That is literally it.
Alrighty.
And now we're moving on. Apparently, both Bill and I watched Shang Chi.
Yep. You want to go first, or should I? Okay, go ahead.
I didn't like it. It had potential, but about halfway through, it just started to drag. Oh God, did it drag. I'm not really interested anymore, and I'm pretty sure I fell asleep through part of it. You?
It's kind of interesting because I have a similar yet different complaint. I really liked the first half. I thought it was set up well. The character dynamics were great. And then in the second half, it felt like things started to get rushed. For example, the Campbellian Inmost Cave, or others might know it as the Empire Strikes Back fight, part of the story, was about 10 minutes before the actual, victory, Return of the Jedi fight part of the story, and part of the same battle. So that's just an example of it basically taking these story elements, but then being like, oh shit, we spent so long working on setting up these characters that we have no time for this climax that we're trying to do, and of all of the action stuff. So I think that part really fell apart. I was also a bit frustrated, and this is I'm gonna say it's a really minor spoiler that doesn't affect the plot at all. But basically, these two people who are best friends throughout, they decided at the very end, well, we can't have that in a Disney property. So we have to be a mononormative and hint that they hooked up at the end. And there was no reason for it. People are already wish that there were more like non-romantic friendships in movies as it is. Cross-gender friendships in movies as it is. So it's a minor annoyance. It doesn't affect the movie very much. It's just a minor annoyance. But in general, I would agree with your assessment that the first half is good and the second half is not as good.
Yeah. Well, I think there's before the final fight, there's a bit of drag, and then they rushed the final fight.
That makes sense.
So the last
Because
half
I
pacing is
remember-
completely shot.
It's not paced well either way. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the pacing is really off,
Mm-hmm.
and it really threw me off
Mm-hmm.
because the pacing is great the first half. Then they get to this other world, whatever, and it slows the fuck down to a crawl, and then the fight happens, and they put it on fast forward.
It almost seems like
So-
that part would have been better as a Disney Plus show. Like the Disney Plus
Or a
shows do
sequel.
such a better job of that sort of
Pacing, yeah.
sequence that sort of sequence of all the stuff that happens. Like that could have been 2 episodes, even 1 or 2 episodes in a Disney Plus show without a problem. But it doesn't really fit in a movie like that.
Yeah, Shang Chi probably should have been a show.
That said, I agree with assessments that this is the best live action Dragon Ball movie.
That's not a high bar.
That's not a very high bar at all.
Hey, do you still have that DVD of the of what was it? The old
The
was it
old
Hong
Chinese
Kong Dragon Ball? Yes.
knockoff. Yes,
Yeah, with the Roshi dance. Yeah.
yes, with the Roshi dance.
All right.
There's a Chinese.
Anything
That's
else
the
before we
Chinese
move
one.
on
And
to
there's also
Spider-Man?
a Hong Kong one which borrows elements from Z before Z happens. It's weird. Anyway.
Anyway, moving on.
Yep. So I watched Spider-Man No Way Home finally because it became available on Prime Video, and luckily
it
I knew
free?
in advance. It's the only option is $20. There's no rental or
Jesus
anything. You have to
Christ,
buy
yeah.
it full price. And if I hadn't
that.
heard such good things, if I hadn't heard such good things about it, I would have waited until it was cheaper.
Yeah, it was just a matter of if it was free, I would just watch it. If it's something
Right,
like
right.
that, Aaron and I will have to have a movie night.
The other Spider-Man movies I paid like $3 to rent, but this is probably at least another month before it's to that point.
Yeah, actually, I think you have to actually buy it from Prime
You do have to
Video.
buy it. Yes, you cannot rent it yet. So that's it. The movie itself, as everyone has said, it's pretty good. I mean, it's really good. But yeah. So all of the things people were skeptical about leading in about how some of the villains are different, most of that is explained fairly well in the movie to the point where I think it might be a model for how things such as Daredevil, if that universe is brought over, which
It has been.
yeah,
They're working
I
on
guess
putting
there's
it
no
up,
point
yeah.
beating around the bush at this point.
No, it's
Um,
up. It's
no,
all of the Netflix
the
stuff
old
is now in
seasons are they're whatever they're doing for the future with him isn't. So it's still not in the MCU yet.
Well, technically
But-
is because he's in here and they're planning on
Right,
using him in the future.
Yeah. For things like Daredevil and the X-Men, I think it's a good model in the sense that you see they're acknowledging what came before. They acknowledged how Electro was in the version that nobody liked. But at the same time, they kind of explain why he becomes a version that's a bit cooler for the screen. They kind of played with people's expectations a bit, as you would expect with a highly anticipated Marvel movie. The main cast was great. From some spoilers I had seen, I thought I was going to hate the ending. because I thought it was going to be that same kind of ending that you saw in Spider-Man 1 and Superman 1 and a whole bunch of other superhero movies. And it has some similarities to that, if you know what I'm talking about, but it's not the same. And I did not hate the ending the way that I was so frustrated at the ending of those movies. It's still, I'm still kind of up in the air as to what comes in the future in terms of how that ending actually hits. But for now, it was a decent ending. Um, it looks like it looks like they're kind of saying that um, the 2007 Venom and the new Venom are basically the same one based on the mid-credit scene. Um, but I don't know enough about the new Venom to speak in much detail about it, other than the fact that there was a mid-credit scene that
That's weird
had to do with
because Eddie Brock
Venom-related
changed a lot
things.
in those couple of years.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
he seems to not
I
remembering
I
that
think
happened unless they're doing something to alter
but yeah,
that too.
I could, if you want, I could definitely talk on stream about
But
why
yeah,
I
not right
say
now.
that.
yeah.
But otherwise, just pretty much like anyone said, if you've enjoyed any Spider-Man movie over the past 22 years, literally any of them, then you'll enjoy this one a lot.
Oh, and I take it you finally now get what I said when I saw it, where I said that it looks like they might be scaling Spider-Man down
I thought you said
from like the
I
epic
th-
scale that he was
I
at.
thought you said they were going back to the basics or something, which I don't, which I wouldn't have liked, but or maybe somebody else said that, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I
scaling
don't
down
recall.
potentially, we'll see.
Hmm.
But that is it for Spider-Man: No Way Home.
All right. And that will be it for Geek Talk.
Alrighty.
Normally I would have some catch up, but I'm still catching up with life at the moment.
Oh wow, we got to this point in under an hour.
Well, yeah, we kept it. We tried to keep it to 3 minutes or less. So,
Right.
and I kind of went through my shows really quickly, except for we did talk a bit on Shang Chi, and we did talk a bit on No Way Home, but it was still only less than 5 minutes.
A lot of news and a lot of geek talk in under an hour. Pretty good.
So I will get back on those catch ups at a later date. I'm still trying to figure out a food, exercise, sleep schedule that works. So that's why I haven't had time to do any catch up watching. Okay,
So no
we are
reviews
at
of
the
shame. So
episodes.
we're today's episode then.
Yes.
So Randy, Adam,
Yes.
stopwatch is ready. Are
All
you?
right. Yes.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Gwen shows up for work at Torchwood, and they're basically doing inventory on items, only there's somebody there she doesn't recognize. He walks up to her and basically says, "Yeah, I'm Adam, remember me?" And suddenly she does. This causes her to forget Reese and everything about Reese. Meanwhile, Adam also goes up to Tosh and basically suddenly has her remember a relationship that they were in, and also has seemed to change Owen into a kind of a timid, mousy person rather than his cynical bastard self. And also has Jack kind of snowed into remembering stuff about him that doesn't exist. This continues for a bit, with him just filling in the blanks until Ianto goes to check his diary, trying to find an item that they're not familiar with, and discovers that Adam isn't in it. At this point, Adam takes an even more sinister turn, as he forces Ianto to remember, quote unquote, that he killed 3 women. This is, of course, a fiction that Adam just implanted in his head. When Jack comes back to the base, Ianto begs him to put him down in the vaults because he's a danger to everybody, and Jack refuses to believe it. Jack checks the CCTV in their HQ and discovers Adam doing all this remember this stuff and realizes that Adam's an intruder. He basically puts a gun to Adam, takes him down to the vault, and locks him up. But this is after, of course, Adam has already helped Jack remember part of his own past with his father and his brother Gray. Tosh objects to Adam being taken away, as far as she's aware, Adam is her boyfriend and relatively serious. But the others disable her. And after a bit, Jack gives them a chance to remember who they are and give them pills to forget the last 2 days. He then goes down to Adam and basically tells him that, he's the only one left that remembers. Adam begs for his life and bribes Jack with one more memory of his father, which Jack eventually consents to, only Adam tries to insert himself to keep Jack from killing him. When that happens, Jack takes his own 48-hour amnesia pill, and Adam vanishes. They wake up with a 2-day missing log and a bunch of weird things around them, like flowers for Tosh from Owen, that they can't quite explain, and they're all back to their normal selves. Pretty much the end.
All right. 3 minutes, 33 seconds.
Man, I'm going fast tonight.
Fine by me. I need to
All
get
right.
some sleep tonight if I possibly can.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing too. Is my body has not been getting a lot of sleep, so it's get through this, let me sleep. Or I'm either that or I'm just trying to get through the podcast before I have to pee again. Stupid freaking pills. Okay, so playing musical thing. Yeah, Matt's first. What did you like about the episode?
So general thing I liked about the episode. It definitely shows some more interesting chops for the acting and the characters. The actors get to actually do some stuff that they don't normally get to do with the characters and be very different for an episode.
They get to act outside their box.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Like Owen not being a complete and total piece of shite.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, Owen being Tosh.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah. And then some of the fake memories, and also just there's a lot of interesting stuff that he put them through, and also hinting at what I believe is the season story, which is Jack's brother.
Yeah, that's part of the season story anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Bill?
It just moved as I realized I spent enough time thinking about my choices for dislike that I didn't think about what I liked. So I am going to say, let's see, I can't talk about the acting. I guess I'll just say in general the whole like the steps they took to figure out to figure it out. I really liked. It showed that they were, even though they had kind of been hoodwinked for 2 days, they were still competent. They still knew how to follow the clues that they had at their disposal. First the diary, and then realizing Yanto's not acting the way he normally would. Let's check the CCTV, and it shows that they're not being like completely outsmarted like the Fight Club episode that we keep bringing up.
That Fight Club episode was just really weak sauce for them. I have normally so.
They had a bad day.
Apparently, bad couple of days.
All right. Alex?
I guess I like the idea that Adam as an entity is purely doing this for survival rather than it being like, as you know, while he does some shit like making Yanto think that he's killed a bunch of women and all that, like I like the concept of it just being like he has to do this to survive, sort of a thing, rather than it just being he showed up and decided to fuck with them. Which it very easily could have been, like, instead of what they went with, where as soon as they forget him, he literally ceases to exist. It rather than this just being some alien that's got memory powers or something that's just fucking with them for no reason.
All right. Now I have to think of what I want, and it's hard because y'all mentioned the things that I liked. Honestly, I'm gonna pass.
Just can't think of
Because you
a
took my
fourth thing.
no, because you took the ones I was going for. So let's go about what you dislike.
Dislike.
And Matt's first.
I mean, it helps the story at least get going for them to figure out how all this is going on. But the fact that Gwen is the only one that suddenly has a giant blank hole in her memory is kind of odd.
I don't think it's just Gwen because otherwise, like Tosh and Owen's entire personalities were forgotten. Like Tosh forgot about her crush on Owen.
I think they were purposely altered, is what happened with them.
I think those were purpose, but I think because Gwen was like a rush job, is why that happened.
Yeah. Because Adam didn't realize that.
Yeah, the others went on
Reese
whatever
was a
mission
thing.
that Adam initially picked them up on. So he was able to just, subtly adjust their memories to include himself. And when Gwen came in, he looked absolutely surprised that there was somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm thinking he's kind of had to do an oh shit memory thing. And he just kind of did a butcher job, which is why she forgot Reese. Either that or the whole thing is altered personalities because of the memory mods, and he just likes it that way. I don't know.
Yeah, either way, it's just kind of a little weird that she was the only one, but I guess it would have been nice if they would have given an official answer on that as to why.
Yeah,
I mean, of course, she's the only one with a personal life to forget.
Yeah,
I suppose that's also true.
Yeah, like he does seem to be a bit, whoops, like when it happens, because I feel like he's like, shit, if I'd known, I probably would have tried to compensate.
Yeah. All right, Bill.
All right, so I think I am going to go with the fact that the way memory works in here it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense in a way that's not consistent. So like retcon already doesn't make sense, but that's at least consistent. But the idea that he on one hand he changes your brain so much that you forget major things about your past, like your personality. Um, and yet somehow by forgetting the past 48 hours, you can undo what seems to be years worth of fucked up neural connections. You can't have it both ways. Like, that's inconsistency within, like, it's not following the same type of the same logic as the other nonsense. And you got to pick one nonsense. You can't have two incompatible nonsenses. So that bugged me.
I mean, it's also to that end, there's like Yanto's diary doesn't change, so it's like that's a thing. But then, like, when their memories get wiped of Adam, all of the security footage that involves him is gone, which is like, wait, how does that work?
I thought Jack just kind of did that off screen.
Might have, yeah.
Yeah, I figured Jack erased it. Yeah, he just went through and he just erased all traces of Adam.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to that end, you could say that it.
To gloat.
Yeah, I guess you could say that also kind of makes Adam a bit dumb that he didn't like try to think about all this other extra shit that he'd have to work around. It's
Well,
like,
he's only been there for 2 days.
True, yeah, but it's like, I mean, you could argue the diary is a bit like random too, because like, where the hell did that come from? I don't remember Yanto having one before. He just has one now because the plot needs it.
Now I want to look at it. Like, he definitely seems like the person who would have that kind of diary, but I don't know if it was ever mentioned before.
Not that I recall. I don't recall it being mentioned very often after either.
Yeah.
Oh no! Apparently, this is the first mention of the diary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's one of those. We finally bring it up because the plot, like, yeah, it is something that, like, yeah, I can absolutely buy Ianto having one, but it's just so funny that it's like it's only brought up now because it's plot relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Plot convenience diary. Hello.
If only he had put glitter and collages on the front.
Thankfully, the thing that I was going to go with has not been taken yet, and that is we literally 1 episode ago finally fucking sorted out the Gwen Owen shit. The Gwen Reese shit, and then you have in the very next episode Gwen lose her memory of Reese. It's like, oh, for God's sake.
At least she got it back.
Well, yeah, that's what softens it a bit, but it's still just like watching those episodes in a row is just like, oh, for God's sake. We just got through this. Why? I mean, like, yeah, in universe it's been like a month apparently, but like, it's just so frustrating. If this was like several episodes after Meet, then it probably wouldn't be as bad. But the fact that it's like directly after the episode where they finally have like sort that out is just like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I personally, what bothered me was the fact that Adam would talk about remembering not existing.
Oh, right.
That always was like a little bit, what the hell?
Yeah, it's like, what, floating in the void or something?
Yeah.
It should not surprise you that apparently Big Finish went back and made an origin story for him.
Well, that does not surprise me at all. No. But yeah, the whole thing about I remember not existing. Don't send me back to non-existence. I'm like,
How do you
Yeah.
remember not existing?
Yeah. I mean, if it was a matter,
If it was a matter of like
like,
physically not existing, but he still
yeah,
exists somehow somewhere,
yeah,
that's one thing.
I think
but
that's what he meant,
no,
yeah, the wording is just a bit
word's a bit
right.
off.
unclear. Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of yeah.
Where'd he come from, and where is he gonna go back to?
Yeah.
Where did he come? What is he, Cotton Eye Joe?
Okay, so favorite scene.
Hmm. I obviously, yeah, so starting with me, so I'm gonna go with the Jack at the end, just wanting one more good memory, and then Adam inserts himself, and Jack's just like, "Fuck you," and takes the pill.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like, I mainly really like that because it's very like Adam's doing it out of desperation.
Adam's doing it
but
out of
it's
desperation.
ultimately
Jack is just literally just wants one more good thing in his life to remember, and then he just had to go and ruin it.
I mean, and
Yeah.
Jack clearly only trusted him out of desperation because it's
Well,
sitting
yeah,
like
yeah.
he's even sitting there. He's like, what's your motive in this?" And then it actually happens. He's like, "Oh, that was your motive in this."
Yeah. And then like Adam not realizing, well, you've just fucked yourself over, mate, because he's not going to want to keep it now because you've tainted it.
Mm-hmm.
So he generally he got a bit too desperate, and it backfires on him.
Mm.
Yep. Or he underestimated Jack's determination to. Regardless,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Underestimate
my favorite
Jack wins.
scene, my favorite scene is definitely Yanto being like, "You're not in my diary," because I mean, like I said, it shows that
Yeah.
they're following the trail of clues. Because I just like a person who's ignoring things or just like trying not to, the whole like, "Oh, I don't want to make waves" mentality would be like, "Oh, that's weird. Why did I never write about Adam? Oh well, let me just keep looking for what I'm looking for." But he's like, "Wait a second, no, something's fucking up,"
Yeah.
and something was fucking up.
Alex.
All right.
Alex,
As much as the Gwen Reese thing bugged the hell out of me, and because Matt took mine, I'm gonna go with the bit in the shop where like the Reese the
Oh,
rant.
god damn you!
Because yeah, it's just like, oh, thank God, this is at least an ending. Like, it's at least being mended before the end of the episode and the retcon stuff.
Damn it, I really liked that scene.
I mean, you can tag onto it because you are next anyway.
Yeah, I know, but there's nothing more really to say. I mean, I just thought it was a great scene. You know, he just goes off on this tangent and it just sparks the memory. And you just watch as she starts cracking up. I thought it was just perfect. Perfect way to get the memory back. So, yeah, I really liked that. All right, least favorite scene. Matt?
Least favorite. Hmm. Honestly, even the way it kind of spelled out, even if it wasn't for Am doing the whole mind suggestion thing, him just going, "You can always talk to me, Jack," always felt really stiff and weird. Even right then and there, you would think Jack would instantly have some qualms and raise a huge eyebrow that he only trusts one person all the time to tell everything that he's done.
And watching that scene in particular, made me think like in season 1, Jack was like shielded against any sort of like telepathic invasion or anything. So what's different now?
Maybe a little bit shell shocked from being
Like
buried for how many years? Well, actually, no, that happens at the end of the season. Never mind.
I was gonna say that hasn't happened yet. But
Yeah,
the
well, he
mhm.
did technically die at the end of last season for a little while. They were almost going to put him away until he suddenly woke up again. Feeding all of his super life force to the big demon digital thing.
Why is he vulnerable? Because plot.
Yeah.
Trying to think of another specific scene that's not like a sequence of things that really grated on me. And I guess I'm gonna say each time I watch it, the whole like, oh, I want to distract Tosh, so I'm going to make myself into her lover in her mind is just a squicky fucking scene. And it's
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I get that like he's not actually human, so it's not really the same as if like Owen or somebody did it, but even still, it's just
Well, it doesn't matter
especially
if
in
he's not
that
human. It's still
moment,
squicky.
right? Like especially in that moment, like the feeling of revulsion in that scene is yeah.
Plus, it's not
Yeah,
exactly the first time this has happened to Tosh.
Yeah, poor Tosh.
True.
all right. Are we? We're down to Alex, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I already voiced my annoyance at the Gwenry stuff in like least favorite aspect, so I'm going to ignore that for a scene, and I'm going to go with Yanto getting his memory changed to add the serial killer shit because like, and it's not even like Yanto figuring it out and trying to sort of confront him is fine, but just like kind of that acting, some of the hammy acting in that when Yanto's getting his memory changed just kind of ruins the moment.
See, I really liked that scene. Like that was my backup for favorite scene.
Because like some of it's okay, but some of the acting just just makes me kind of laugh. When I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it just his acting, I just like some of it's fine. It's more so like when he's like crying and huddled, I don't mind it, but like when like he's getting like Adam's like got his hands on his head and he's just kind of freaking out. It's like that stuff that's like, okay, now it's getting a bit silly.
Well, that tends to happen very quickly with people doing brain things in any Doctor Who thing.
Or when you suddenly remember doing something that's against all of your morality.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Who has a habit of making weird faces while people are messing with your brain. And sometimes put a digital effect over it.
All right. So, yeah, if that particular scene hadn't come up, I would have had to have brought it up. But since it did, the other scene that bothered me was the Tosh and Adam, where they're basically about to have sex. And I'm watching that and going, well, she's being controlled into this relationship. That's technically rape.
Yeah.
And my brain goes, ew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Torchwood
Of
has
course,
a
he has to make
very
it worse by being like, "Would you die for me?"
yeah.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that just made it worse.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like Torchwood at its worst is trying to delve too deeply into, ooh, look at all these adult themes we've got going on. And they're like that rather than it at its best, which is more just adult theming in that you couldn't probably show like,
Mm-hmm.
like Countryside and Adrift and stuff like that. Where it's like talking seriously about mental health issues and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or just doing a straight up low budget horror movie like Countryside.
Yeah, well, yeah, Countryside, I've always said, is one of the creepiest ones I've ever seen. It creeped the hell out of me when I saw it. But yeah, this one it just hit squick. This one, in many places, it just hit squick.
Which I guess sort of comes along with the whole memory modification stuff.
Yep.
When you talked about disliking the Reese plot, did you mention the fact that everybody forgot the past 2 days except Reese, so he's going to think Gwen is coming home and gaslighting him?
Yeah, like again, like my least favorite scene was almost her showing up and being like, "Who the fuck is this weirdo in my apartment?" Just because it's like I get, but like I'd already essentially touched on that in like least favorite aspect, so I didn't want to feel like I was doubling.
Yeah, that was almost my least favorite scene, except that's not actually a scene. That's just kind of my imagination of what happens next. But
yeah. Of course, you could argue that another issue with that is like, how are they not immediately finding it odd that Gwen didn't know who Adam was, and then now she suddenly forgot who Reese is? You would think they would have caught on a bit quicker.
I can kind of excuse Jack because he's apparently been just having visions of his dead brother everywhere he looks for the past 2 days.
Yeah, they never do explain that, do they?
Well, I think that was all part of Adam's manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like seemingly like Adam fucking with his memories has jogged old ones loose.
I
Essentially, most likely, that's at least what they seem to be kind of half hinting at.
Yeah. So now that like he's wiped Adam out of his mind, those memories have essentially been buried again.
Maybe.
Okay.
At least to some degree.
Anyway, we're at final thoughts.
So, final thoughts. Majority of this
first?
is. What was that?
Nothing. I said you were first.
Okay. Majority of this is pretty good. Like I said, the acting's really nicely done. A lot of the writing is pretty good. There are a few moments of a little overacting, and there's also a few squick moments we really could have done without. And like one in particular that could just literally be, please remove. You did not need to take it that far. What's the rest of this is really solid and really well done, and I guess the only other real major thing I can think of that's actually a major problem for sure is like the hand wavy ending, which yeah, the whole race to fix both past memories and ongoing memories is really not how brain work. It's a little bit odd, but otherwise, for the most part, as a standalone story, it's not bad. It's pretty solid otherwise. And that's my thoughts.
So I'll go with the overall idea of this episode was pretty decent. You know, it's definitely creepy as hell to have this creature impersonating a person and doing things like that, like the Yanto murder memories and stuff like that. Is definitely makes for an interesting and compelling drama. However, I definitely think this could have used a bit more cooking before being filmed. There's some logical inconsistencies. There's at least one scene that really just doesn't need to be there. And then there's the fact that really Reese still remembers Adam, and therefore Adam should still be alive. And also the fact, as I mentioned, Gwen is just going to come home and Reese is going to be like, you know, so what happened to all the amnesia? She's like, I never had amnesia. And that's just fucked up as hell.
You know, that makes me wonder if, like, that's another, well, fuck it, we just did it off screen thing where, like, Jack told him what happened off screen. So we just never have to address it again.
But so yeah, it was a lot easier to find things I disliked about this episode than things that I liked. But at the same time, I had a few scenes that I really liked. So it wasn't a complete crap episode either. It just wasn't as good as it could have been if they had kind of done some more writing and editing of it. All right, I'll pass on to Alex.
Yeah, this... It's kind of funny because this just had a hard time keeping my attention, if I'm quite honest. Like, to the point that there was like one or two scenes that I'd completely forgotten about, even though I've watched this at least 2 or 3 times in the past couple of weeks. Like in prep for like covering it each week that didn't happen. So, which I guess is kind of funny given the concept of the episode, but yeah, it's just like it feels like there are things that could have been done better and other things where it's like they clearly just no one on the writing team thought, hey, wait, what about? Because, like, yeah, like I will give them credit that at least I didn't even think of like the whole Reese plot hole to that end. Because it's like, yeah, well, technically he's met him, so he'd know him. So, so it's kind of weird. Oh, I guess. I wonder if it's just because he never touched Reese. So, like, as far as Reese was concerned, he was
never injected himself in him.
Yeah. So, like, it doesn't really count.
It's still hand wavy.
But if so, then why would they have deleted the CCTV?
Yeah. I guess that's also a thing. He only ever meets Adam like once, and I don't think Adam is referred to by name in that scene. So maybe like you could possibly reason out like he doesn't know him well enough that he'll forget him in time anyway. Because he's more giving a shit about Gwen in that instance than who this random ginger is. Which, you know, I guess there's never going to be another place to bring this up. I swear to God, I thought this actor was the ginger kid with the mullet from Terminator 2. The guy playing Adam.
No.
Like, he looks like a grown-up version of that kid.
Nah, too much time would pass between them.
Well, also this actor is actually British, as far as I know. The other actor is from the US. But it's just so like, wow, he looks exactly like a grown-up version of that kid. Be like, I would I would honestly say the only reason this episode would not be worth skipping is just because it has season plot stuff with all the shit going on with Jack's memories.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, you could probably just skip this.
Ran.
Well, okay, so the concept had a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Alien that alters your memories, inserting itself into Torchwood. That's an actual good plot idea, you know?
Mm.
The execution, however, left much to be desired. And while some of it could have been skipped for being too squicky. Some of it, you could have included just enough to creep you out. This could have been a great creep out episode.
Yeah.
Mm.
But instead, it went the wrong direction, and instead mostly just squicked you out and didn't quite manage to do what it wanted to.
Yeah, I had a moment where it went too far again, and then the ending was a little.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it could have done another pass of editing and writing, etc., so that people knew exactly what they were doing.
Mm.
And instead, what we got was kind of a half-ass. Half-ass written. It's well acted, except of course apparently you didn't like the Ianto scene, but yeah, it's it could be better. It had potential, but the potential was kind of wasted. Could have been better. All right, so let's rate this. I don't think I have the thing open.
Speaking of having the thing open, I did not fuck with the master sheet or the rankings tab because
Okay, I will.
they're your baby, and I didn't want to break it.
I will fuck with those later. Okay, so we are at, and Matt, you get to rate first.
If only those little tweaks could be there to fix this episode, it could have been an easy 5, but as it currently sits, it's a 4.
All right, Bill.
I've been sitting here trying to figure out if I can justify leaning to a 4. It's in like that 3.7 range. But I think I'm falling on the side of a 3.5.
Okay. Alex.
Yeah, like as good as majority of the acting is, just it certain elements in it plus the fact that it just had a hard time retaining my attention for the most part. I'm going to have to agree with Bill and give this a 3.5.
Okay. And yeah, I'm going to go with the 3.5 as well.
Oh, wow. I'm the Tim today.
Yeah. And that will give us a average of 3.63. Which will put this at a tentative 260 out of 412 things reviewed. There is a couple of things I need to add to the charts. It is on par with nothing.
Oh.
It is better than Class Detained and Torchwood Small Worlds, but not as good as Sarah Jane Adventures The Gift Or I don't even see a Torchwood anywhere near here. So there you go. 260 out of 412 things reviewed. That is all we have to say about Adam.
All right, so please let us know in the comments. What did you think about this episode? Do you agree with our rating or do you disagree, and why? Don't forget to like the video and to subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube to get our exports every week. It's unlikely that we'll take a break that long again. And don't forget to follow us on Twitch to see our streams every Tuesday night.
All right, so next week we are behind schedule, but we are going to plod on until the Easter special comes out. So we will continue with Torchwood, and next week we will do Reset, written by J.C. Wilshire and starring John Barrowman as Captain Jack Harkness, Eve Miles as Gwen Cooper, Bernd Gorman as Owen Harper, Naoko Mori as Toshiko Sato, Gareth David-Lloyd as Ianto Jones, Kai Owen as Reese Williams, and Freema Agyeman guest stars as Martha Jones.
The cast wasn't big enough.
Right. See you next week.
See you then.
Good night.